presenter. Okay, good. Good morning, everyone. Today's webinar is really learning how to mind map. I find this to be a very, very powerful tool. I've been doing it for quite some time now. I wish I had this when I was in college or when I was in high school. This would have made just the sheer amount of time that I had to spend studying and kind of learning the hard way. It's almost as if I was using, manual tools to do something when I could have really, accomplished more in little time. And, by discovering this tool, I knew about mind mapping for a while. The problem was the first incarnation of it, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, the software was just ridiculously complicated. And it just wasn't usable. It was just way the hell too complicated. You want to be able to get in, get out real quickly with the software. So, pretty much everything that I do, I want to make sure that I have, tools that are really, really easy to use. There are some tools that you do have to invest time in, whether it's, Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop or stuff like that, right? Obviously that takes, years to learn. But as far as like things for productivity and for learning, tactics, approaches, routines, and things like that, I look for the easiest, most effective tools, for me to get my work done. Not only in my work life, but also in my regular life, right? When I'm not working. And so the things that I'm going to be showing, I'm going to have this webinar series. We'll just see how long it goes and see how much interest we get from people. But is to really these tools are pretty much available. You don't have to be some techie to use these. I really do think these are modern tactics and tools for the digital age. That's why I like this sort of semantic handle around, what these things are. It kind of reminds me of the early days when we first started using, Microsoft Office and products like that, right? You had to use Word, you needed to know how to do a spreadsheet, kind of all that stuff is pretty much standard no matter, what type of job you have. And I think the same is true for, these more modern tools where everything now is on a mobile device. You have access and connectivity all the time. So we'll be exploring all those tools and the ones that I use, and I'll share with you not just the the theory behind this stuff, but really how do I use it, right? Just show me some practical examples that I can use right away. The other thing is, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the fundamentals of mind mapping. This is what I promised in the webinar, and I'll make sure we check all these off as we go through it. I'll show you how to set up Mindmeister. That's the tool I use. I've looked at them all. This is really the best one. It's you can, I think you get your first free 5 mind maps. Shiva, maybe you can correct me on that. I don't know what the mind map limit is on that, but
3 mind maps.
3 mind maps. Okay, thanks. Anyways, I'll show you how to do that, how to set up Mindmeister. We're going to build our first mind map, and then I'm going to show you where I use it, right? Like I don't try to overuse this tool either. Like if mind mapping is a hammer, not everything is a nail, right? There are mind maps literally that I start and they have no branches because it turned out not to be the right tool at the time, right? So I don't want, I'm very practical as to how I select, when I would use something like this. And the other thing is, I have a lot of experience working both in the office and remotely, and I know Gary Dolson, who's on this call with on this webinar's work, can appreciate working at IBM. I think my experience, I think IBM probably has the best telecommuter work environment. Period. I don't know how much that's changed in recent years, but everything they do is geared towards productivity, regardless if people are in the same location or not in the same location. And so we learned a lot from that. So a lot of these types of things really helped shape how I run meetings, right? How do I have productive meetings? And so I'll show you how we do that. And actually, Shiva's gonna, at the end, we'll show you how he and I collaborate on stuff seamlessly. And you'll find that these are fantastic for running meetings or just brainstorming or gathering ideas. So one of the really cool things, I think this guy, Tony Bazan, who you see down here, I guess he's credited with, inventing the mind map, if you will. I don't know the veracity behind that, but he does seem to get a lot of credit in the industry. And if you think about it, mind mapping, it's a technique that's based fundamentally on memory. It's creativity, comprehension, and understanding. So it doesn't matter who uses it, whether professionals, whether it's a student or a child, that's using the mind map. They're using their brain in the way their brain was designed to be used, right? So, the mind helps you learn, all the cognitive skills, right? And it just simply helps you, and this is how the way your brain learns. So I find that doing these visual maps, again, this is more of an artistic map. Clearly, this type of stuff doesn't scale. You want something that's way easier to use. However, I threw this up here just because, there is an art form to it. I'm not interested in the art form of it. I'm just interested in getting my work done, but I can always appreciate the various approaches. So you'll find it to be very, very powerful. So why don't we just jump into let me just show you an example of a mind map. This is what I just did. We're doing an EA, that stands for, so one of the things that I do in my job is we will hold like seminars for prospects, in this case, enterprise architects, right? So these are enterprise architects in large enterprises, and we will come to them. We did one in Palo Alto earlier last year, and we're doing one in San Francisco coming up June 7th. And so we had our very first meeting, and so I actually was sharing my screen and I popped this up, and just in short order, I was able to really quickly create this. What are the elements of what we have to do, right? We have to have an agenda, we need a customer, and then there's just other thing. What's the big deal? Well, actually 2 of our big bosses are going to be there, so that matters. So we should include that, because it's not that we're not going to deliver a good result. We want to make sure that everything's buttoned up. And then don't worry about the color coding on this. I'll show you how I use it. I try not to overuse it, but that just, with the red allows me to quickly see what the potential due dates are. So let's look at the elements here. You have a main idea, a subject, or focus, right? So usually this is the thing that you're trying to, map out. It could be something like an event. It could be a topic. It could be something you're trying to learn. Whatever the subject is, it could be a specific lecture. It could be you trying to understand a particular chapter in a book on whatever subject it is. And, mind mapping it out might be a better way for you to remember and see all the interconnected things that are associated with it. So that's usually how you start these things. So these are the 4 things. So the second thing is really, you have main themes that radiate from the center, right? So this one makes obvious. We have an event. There's going to be an agenda. There's going to be a customer. There's going to be some sort of intangible. There's going to be a due date, logistics, and elements that we have to consider, right? So those are the main themes that radiate. And then third, you have topics of either lesser importance or just more detail, right? Doesn't necessarily mean it's not important, but these are just the next level of detail. So you have these twigs, if you will, the relative branch. Now, if you look here, we have, how many levels here? We have 1, 2, and 3. I generally don't go beyond 3 levels, just because it starts to get really complicated. Most of the times you don't have to go 3 levels. You may have examples where you do that, and I'm going to show a lot of different examples so that you can understand how we do that. And then the 4th thing is really, all these branches form a connected nodal structure, and it's being able to visualize everything like this is really what makes it easy to sort of grasp and kind of take the next steps. Now, I'll usually create this once, and then I'll probably go on to other tools. I'll probably put stuff in a PowerPoint. I'll probably summarize things in an email to my colleagues, to my boss, just to let them know where I am with this. So I may do this once. I may reference it. The other cool thing is I can spit this thing out as an image, and I can pop it in an email or whatever. And then the other thing is it allows you to print it out, and then it creates an outline for you. And I'll show you how to do that as well. So that's really it. This is really the key elements of Mindmeister. So, I mean, at least of mind mapping, and then I'll show you how we do that with Mindmeister. So, and what I'll do is towards the end, I'll allow for questions. We have a little a QA. You can either ask questions by typing them in. You'll see how to do that at the end of this. But let me go to the next, which is how to set up Mindmeister. So kind of what I said about this is my what I call Robert's stupid simple principle, right? So any tool or tactic or system, whatever I choose, right, it can't be difficult, and it has to be, at least in as I look at it, stupid simple, right? It's easy to use. I'm not gonna ignore it after trying to use it for the first 2 or 3 times, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I think they're stated elegantly here, right? There's enough complexities in our life that we're burdened with to keep things easy. So all the tools, the tactics, and approaches that I do are going to meet this sort of stupid simple principle, okay? Because that's important to me. It's important to me because I do want to gain the productivity, and I do want to be able to get the benefits of the tool, but I don't want it to be difficult to do. Okay, so if you can do this, you're 90% of the way there. If you know how to use the tab key, if you know how to use the enter key, and you can use the cursor on your mouse, you are 90% of the way skilled to be able to do a mind map. Okay, so this is how easy it really is. So why don't we go to Mindmeister? So the first thing I want to do is just simply show you the site Mind. And what I'm going to do is just show you how you know what, I probably need to open it up on let me open it up on IE instead, because it remembers that I logged in with Chrome. Okay, I'm on the IE browser now, so I'll just put my name here, work email. Okay, and we'll sign up. Ooh, CAPTCHA. Select all the squares with vehicles. There's none. Skip. Wow, isn't that weird? They think I'm a robot. I don't know, man. I just watched the last episode of Westworld. I think any of those hosts could easily have beat that. Okay, so they sent me an email, and then it'll activate. But let me now go to my other account. It's really that easy. You go to your email, you set up, you get the first 3 mind maps for free. Let me now show you. If I come in here into my account, let's just look at my account. I do Mindmeister Pro because I'm a power user. I basically pay, I think it's like $59 for 6 months. Just well worth it. It's like, it's to me, it's kind of like, why does a carpenter have these awesome tools on his belt? Well, because you need it to do your job. I look at it the exact same way. And you can come in here and you can manage your, right. Or you can pay, it's $9.99 a month. There's different ways to do this. Again, and I have no stake in these guys. I just think it's a damn cool tool, and I love what they do. And so that's Mindmeister. And then once you get set up, you can see I have all my mind maps here, right? I started using it really pretty intently at Salesforce, actually at Epiphany. So this was a startup that I did at after I left Microsoft, and we actually sold this startup to Microsoft. And so after that, I joined Salesforce. And then after Salesforce, I did a startup called SkyGiraffe. We sold that company to ServiceNow. I work at ServiceNow, and that's the company I'm at now. So that I still use it for all these things. So it's very, very powerful tool. Okay, so that's basically how I set it up. Let's go back to our PowerPoint here. All right, so setting up Mindmeister is a piece of cake. Let's go to the next thing. Let's now build our first mind map, okay? And so what I'll do is I'll just go into personal. I'm just going to say new mind map. I always choose the blank one. They have a template library, but man, don't burden yourself with all these damn templates. They're just complicated as hell. And you know, it's like they may look good, but just keep shit simple, you know. And this is what I do. I simple mind map, right? So all I'm doing here is I'm dragging and I'm holding my mouse. This is just allows me to add a few things in here. I don't use this too much, but I'll explain how I do use that. I'll just get that out of the way for now. And then what I'll do is I'll just say webinar 1. So let's say I wanted to build a mind map on this webinar, right? How to mind map. Right. This was kind of the process I was following when I did that. So all I did was just click in this box and I entered that information in, and you know, it gave me everything I was looking for. Right. So what are some attributes of this? You know, initially when I was thinking about this, well, you know, Facebook friends, definitely want to invite them. Right. Invite everyone. All I did each time is I'm hitting tab. I hit tab and it immediately adds another branch. If I click this, hit tab, it adds a branch here. If I click here and hit tab, it adds a branch. That's it. Mouse tab. I can zoom this in so you can see it even better. So I'm going to invite everyone. Logistics, or at least Zoom webinar, right? So test the platform, right? Record, do test recordings. And then I'm going to, and these are all the stuff I had to do to prepare for this webinar. I had to test just using it, right? I haven't used it as much because of, you know, most of my webinars I use my company stuff. So I did some test recordings, just test using it, making sure I understood it, and you know, play and then configure video and audio. So I did all that stuff beforehand, right? That's the Zoom webinar. And then I said, okay, what's the agenda going to be, right? So I do the agenda. Let me make this a little bit smaller so I can put it. All I did was hit the plus minus key after the agenda, and then I just basically, you know, learn fundamentals, right? Build your first mind map. Now, as I'm doing this, you know, if you want, you know, you can select this, just hit that, and just hit the star, and it'll add a little star icon on there, right? I don't know. You can choose to use that or not. It just turns on or off. The other thing too is you can, you know, let's say do test recordings is really important. All I do is just see the background. I can either change the color of the text, change the color background, make sure that's red, and make sure that the text is white. That's it. So I use this sparingly, but sometimes if I need things to pop, then I'll just use, but again, I try to keep things very, very simple, you know, when I do that, right? So going back here, where to use mind map, set up Mindmeister, and then remote meetings. So that's a real quick and easy, you know, mind map that I created just on what I was trying to do with this webinar. The cool thing is you have some other capabilities here. So I can actually hit that export button and I can export this to a PDF, right? That's all I did. Let me show you again. hit this little cloud icon here. It says export. I export that. I said export to a PDF. It's exporting. And then I can just send this as an attachment in an email. And this is what it does. It'll pop your image here, and then you get a simple outline, right? And it's pretty cool once you build stuff out, because then it does some pretty neat stuff. So that's really building your first mind map. I'm going to now show you some of the ways that I've used it, but I just wanted to give you a sense of how it works. Like I said, it's just the tab key, the enter key, and moving your cursor, right? And then as you start to get comfortable with this, you can start, playing around with some of this stuff. Again, most of my mind maps, you'll see I don't add images, I don't add videos. You can actually use this to track tasks and all that. It's just not the right tool for that. I've tried looking at it, and it's just, I'll keep my Trello board, my Kanban style, approach. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation here. Display settings, let me just switch this for you guys. It's just automatic. I have 2 monitors here, so it always defaults back. Okay, so we built our first mind map. And you see how easy it is to use. I would say start playing with it. The next thing is where do I use mind maps? Like what's a good example? So I felt in this case, the best thing to do is just to show you. I have a very rich library of mind maps. So, we go back to that, let's see where I have here. Here's one I did. So this one's on natural language understanding. So we got pulled in. I got pulled in once I found out ServiceNow was going to acquire this this company called Parlo. We just acquired them a few weeks ago, and they're actually experts in artificial intelligence and what's called natural language understanding. So I'm part of the post-merger integration team. So I have to go in and really understand the technology and understand how we're going to message it. So I literally went in, met with these guys in under an hour, and I whipped out this tool, and I had to go in and just this is all brand new stuff to me, right? So I'm freaking clueless, right? And so what I did was I looked at kind of to set myself up. I looked at their website, and I realized they had these 3 things. They had this this technology that does basically natural language understanding. It's broken up in 3 different things, right? Machine learning, grammar engineering, and semantic parsing. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then I okay, well, how are they talking about it, right? What's the value, right? And so going into a meeting, I've already sort of had this, and again, not knowing really anything about this, I can come and be prepared for something like that. So this is a good example of how I just recently used it. I think I showed you in the previous example how I used it for a meeting. And then let me show you, I have another good one right here. Let me show you this other one. So one of the things I had to do was, as part of my role, as a product role, I have to figure out what's in my product, and then how can I reflect that in a way that people can understand what's in my product, right? So I built out this this model here, and then I worked with my designer to figure out how we were going to represent this. But the product that I'm responsible is called the Now Platform. So this could be anything. Think of this could be an insurance product, anything that you guys work on, right? It can be, you name it, right? It's going to have some structure. Now let me show you something here. You notice hey, Robert, this kind of looks like an org chart. Well, all you have to do is come in here and say, I can either go free alignment, right? You can see sometimes these free alignments can get a little unwieldy, but why don't I just put it in more of an org chart, right? Or I can say, let me do a right alignment, right? And again, it just depends on the information. I can't tell you what the right way is. It really does depend on the information that you're doing. So what I had to do is I had to take what's all the capabilities of the product, right? What are all the features? How do we categorize them? And then how do I explain it? So I probably spent about 2 to 3 weeks building this out. And then it was real easy for me to work with my designer, and I had a vision for how I wanted to lay this out. So if you look at all these individual things right here, from this, I was able to then go and create this right here. And I'll swap the view. Right, pretty cool, right? All these were basically just nodes on my mind map, but having that displayed in that way allowed me to put more of my creative cognitive ability on how I want to design and look at things, because I was able to really see it all, and I was able to make better connections. So this is what I would say is a pretty good, for me, I think a really good extreme example of where this sort of concept really popped, and I was able to produce something that's now pretty well used inside our company and outside our company. So that's one example. And then I'm going to show you one more example that I have that I used for a website. So we had to build out a trust website at ServiceNow, and one of the things, what that means is a lot of companies that are in cloud computing, like Microsoft, Salesforce, Amazon, Oracle, you name it, SAP. Part of the assurance that they have to give to their customers is that their cloud is safe. They comply with all the regulations. Actually, Europe just came out with this big GDPR, which means, and this affects every company that's on the internet, right? That there are certain standards you have to meet for data privacy. So this stuff is really, really important. And what we had to do is we had to figure out how we were going to create this new part of the website. So I worked with our global head of InfoSec, right, information security, and he and I spent all last summer really trying to map out how are we going to organize our website. So what we did was we started pretty simply, and we went out and looked at how does Amazon communicate this information? How does Microsoft communicate this information? How does Google communicate this information, right? So we looked at how are they doing it, right? How are they organizing their information? Does it suck? Does it not suck? Are people doing it really in a cool way or not? What can we learn? So what we did was, after doing that, my colleague and I were able to come up with this real basic structure, right? That we're going to have. Notice these two are really the same category, and I'll explain that in a second, because here's the problem. When you actually blow this out, it's like super long. It's like a mile long. I mean, geez, look at this. It's very long. Now, it took us 45 days to build this out. We had a lot of people, not a lot of people, but about a number of people working on this. And so just coming up with what I call, and again, all this is a website categories, right? It's just website navigation. So there's a lot of back and forth on where do things belong? Can something belong here? Can something belong there? But I have to tell you, having this mind map was just essential to being able to very quickly figure out this structure, be able to visualize it. Okay, so now let me show you what the end result was. We launched this. So if you go to the ServiceNow Trust, and you'll see, oh, wait a sec, look at that. You have security insurance, operations and availability, right? And then you go back to my my mind map, right? Whoops. Move this over here. You see those categories there, right? And then global, these are all just the details on the website, right? I can go into security insurance. You can look at all this stuff was listed in the mind map, right? Security architecture, all of this stuff was listed in the mind map. So this had a huge effect in us hitting our deadline and really being able to take something very complex and then work with our web creative team to figure out a nice, elegant way to display that. So that's another example of where I use this. Okay, so let's go back to those are some of the use cases. I'll show you another simple one on a personal one. I put together a life map back when. You can do stuff like this. I find this to be a fantastic exercise personally. So I kind of think, you know, this idea of a 12-month life, you can do a 3-month life plan, 6-month life plan. You know, my daughter here, Belle, right? What are those, you know, she has Belle, she has school, health, tutor, summer camps, home schedule, sports, hobbies, myself, health and fitness. What are the outcomes I'm trying to achieve? Personal finances, right? What am I trying to do there? You know, maybe it's, you know, attain credit score over 780, right? Something like that. What do I have to do to get there, right? Maybe I'm applying for a mortgage, right? So what's really cool about this is I put these together. I don't do 12 months anymore. I find that doing 3 to 6 month chunks, but this is super powerful because, man, it really allows you to look at your life and the things that matter to you, and you can determine what each one of these things are, right? So that's the cool part of this. So that's a personal example of how I use mind mapping. Let's go back to this. Okay, so we learned where to use a mind map. So the next thing I want to show you guys is I have my colleague Shiva, who I work with. He's my work colleague. We're going to show you how we use it. I got Shiva using mind mapping about a year ago, and it's just a fantastic tool. Now here's the thing. Don't expect everyone on your team to adopt this tool. I haven't been able to do it. Shiva hasn't been able to do it. It's not going to happen, right? So don't feel like you have to impose this on everyone. However, they will benefit from the output of this tool. And Shiva can attest for that. Shiva, I don't know if you have any additional comments to add about that.
No, you summarized it very well. Yes, you're absolutely right that you can't force people to use it, but if they are collaborating and using this tool, then it becomes much easier.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what's really cool about this is if you have, and so I actually started one just so we can, I think you have this one now, right, Shiva?
Yeah.
Okay, let's open this one up. So I'm just literally, we're creating this, we're just pulling this out of our ass right now. So we have no idea what we're going to do here, but let's just figure it out. How about Shiva, you and I are going to do roadshows. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to do this. Can you look at who's going to be our speakers, and I'll look at the cities. Okay. So you notice here it says Shiva right there. So we're in brainstorming mode right now. So I'm going to go ahead and do locations, right, of our roadshow. San Francisco. Meanwhile, Shiva is actively working on coming up with who the speakers are going to be. San Francisco. See that? I even do that. That's Shiva working on speakers right now. LA. Lockhart, Texas, just because. San Antonio, just because. I love San Antonio. San Antonio is always in my heart. New York. Right, so locations. Topics. We can talk about serverless computing, maybe. We can talk about enterprise architecture. Excuse my spelling. Okay, Shiva, what else are we not seeing here? What else can you think of that we need to take into consideration if we're going to have a successful roadshow? You know what I'm thinking? Funding. So Robert needs to talk to field marketing, right?
Another one, Robert, is about the agenda, general agenda for these meetings.
All right, go ahead and if you could, while I'm looking at the funding thing, can you go ahead and just work on the agenda piece of this?
Yep.
All right, cool. And I'll figure out how to, so funding, schedule meeting with my boss, find co-funding with the business unit. This is actually a you know, a lot of times when we're trying to do stuff, we have to have our hand out to ask for money. And sometimes if we get people to believe in what we're doing, we can get funding for stuff like this. So look at that. We did this in less than 4 minutes, right? That is pretty powerful. And so if you notice here, it says shared down here, shared with one person, Shiva, right? And so, and this is how, if you remember the previous example where we did the ServiceNow Trust website and all those complicated topics, we had multiple number of people working on that. So this is a really good example of you know, what you can do. The other thing I was going to talk about are these templates. Why complicate your life? Like literally, I don't know. This is too much. This is too much cognitive load for me. I don't want to have to think about this stuff. I want to keep the defaults, right? So all I did was come in here and look at the various themes. You can customize them. You know, look, if that's your thing, go right ahead. I recommend you not mess around with that, right? There's just a lot you can do with this. You can actually, you can attach documents to stuff. Sometimes I do that. That way, if you're in the context of a mind map, you may have associated files like a PDF or a PowerPoint presentation or something like that. So Shiva, this is looking pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
I think we're ready to communicate this and maybe start getting some feedback.
Absolutely. I think as we progress further, we would add a few more things like the logistics and those kinds of things. But,
exactly. Let's do it in the next rev, okay?
Yep.
Cool, thanks. All right, so that is even though that was a role play, that was pretty doggone realistic. This is exactly how we do stuff. And I wanted you to see how, if you're in a meeting now, Shiva didn't have to be here, and nor did he have to, but you know, I could have easily done this myself. But if we're in a WebEx meeting or a Zoom meeting or a GoToMeetings meeting, you can use this and share it and allow you to basically whiteboard stuff, right? So this is also really, really good to use for whiteboarding. So I think that's about it. I think we probably get to questions. I think we covered that. Let me now open it up. All right, what I'll do is I'll stop my share, and then what I'm going to do.
Already one question on the.
Okay, here we go. Let's look. Let me pull up the. Where's the Q&A? Here we go. Questions. So there's a QA. You can, if you want to answer questions there. Where else are you looking at? To apply, I see several applications where I run. Hey, let me do this. Let me just attendees. Let me just unmute everyone. Unmute. Walter, I unmuted you. Allow Gary to talk. Allow Evan, Marcus. All right. All right. So you guys feel free to ask any questions here. But let's see. No way we could cover all possible range of time in the conference and the committee each year. So mind maps would be useful to outline the range of possibilities. Yeah, that's a really good comment. Does your employer have to purchase a license to use Mindmeister? That is a very good question. So we use Concur, SAP Concur for our employee expense reports, and we're actually allowed to subscribe to these types of services. So I basically, on my expense reports once a month, on one of those, I'll have the $9.99 Mindmeister. So yeah, that's generally pretty. Most companies I think would be pretty cool. But you know what? Even if they don't, man, this is just such a great investment. You know, just across the board. That was a good to all panelists. Let's see, webinar chat. Any other question, guys? Anything else you want to see? Here's the thing: if you have maybe a more individual question, just you know, text me. just direct message me on Facebook or something like that. And if you have a use case that you want to see if I could help you with, I'm more than happy to do that. All right. No other questions?
I just sent one, Robert.
Okay.
As well.
Oh, yeah. Yes, we have. I mean, one of the things, this whole idea of the lean canvas, and Shiva, my colleague, is also, he's a DevOps guru. So this is why he and I were at DevOps in Austin a few weeks ago. We understand how to do this for, in a large enterprise, how to be real agile, how to get releases out. My next webinar is going to be on Trello. I personally use Trello for planning. Walter, did you have anything else in particular you were interested on that particular topic?
No, I was just trying to see, when you get from ideation into details of, particularly when the word marketecture, when you get into building value propositions or strategy propositions, and then taking that into an actual product that you, if you're a consultant, that you hand over to a company and say, here's what we've done for you.
Yeah, what I do is usually after I create a mind map, the next thing I do when I have the opportunity to do it based on my meeting schedule and all that is I will go to my Trello board and actually I don't have it up here, but I'll start creating my tasks.
Okay.
One of the things that's really cool is Trello allows you to do checklists and stuff, so you can figure out what you want to do. The other thing I'm going to talk about is I have a technique that I use, and you may have heard about it. It's called the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro just means break up your work in 25-minute segments, and then take 5 minutes just to not focus on something. And what I now do is sometimes I'll have stuff that I have to do and I get real stressed out because I'm like, oh shit, there's a lot of stuff here and I got to get it done. But now that I have a history of tracking things using the Pomodoro technique, I can relax and I can say, you know what, that's not going to be so bad because I have a methodical stepwise approach. And I know how much time roughly it's going to take to accomplish that particular task. And man, that has really reduced the performance anxiety, especially when I have to write a white paper that's going to be seen by a lot of people, right? And you want to do a really good job of writing it, and you want to be focused when you write it, and so that's a real key thing for me. And I find that just having these tools in place really help me achieve that goal more effectively.
How do you spell Trello?
Trello.
Okay, you got it right.
Trello, yeah. And that's one of those other things. Well, I actually pay for that service as well. I'm the only one on it. I just find using it as easy. The other thing, all the stuff that I do, right, I can do on my mobile app. Although you're not going to create a mind map on your mobile device. That's just idiotic. However, we have this concept. A mobile app, a really good mobile app has to understand the micro moment that you're trying to, the micro moment you're basically trying to have, right? So an example of a micro moment is I want to order an Uber, right? Open the Uber app, right? Hit the button, see the pin drop, car comes, right? Mobile has to be that easy. And so I find with Trello, it makes it real easy for me to add a card. Even though I may not add the sub lists, I can do that when I get to my computer, but at least I have it in there, And so that's the real cool part.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
This has been awesome. Thank you, Robert.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Can you already think of some use cases, Valerie?
Yes, because we've been struggling a bit with making our staff meetings more effective, adding value to everyone. And so I can definitely see using this.
Man, you know what?
For sure.
Here's a couple things. You could either get people to you guys switch off who does the mind map, but just like even if you do the mind map and then you never look at it again, there's actually value in that, right? Because people can visualize it, they can see it, right? And that's what I find to be really, really effective. So it works well. I do try to pull it out when I can when we're doing meetings like that. Again, don't treat it as a hammer and everything's a nail, right? But I would say Valerie, just start start trying it out, see where it works, see, you know, what some things you can do, you know, with it.
Definitely.
And if you guys have any questions on approaches and stuff like that, or if you have a problem, just come back to me and I can at least give you my point of view on as to how I will tackle a problem. You know, in my work, I have to tackle a lot of unstructured problems, and sometimes there's no sort of template for how you do it, and that adds a lot of stress. And I find that what this does is allows me to start to bring structure into something. You know, another thing I'll show you real quick. We had a video that we did last year for our CreatorCon event. It was one of those 1-minute videos. So what I did was, in this case, I actually used oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Hang on, shit. Let me share my screen again. Okay. So what I did was I said, okay, after watching the video, I was able to look at the themes, right? So these were just all the fast words that were coming at you. And then I said, okay, the opening, the first 13 seconds, right? The next part from 14 to 21 seconds, part 2, 22 to 28 seconds. So this was a 50-second video, but look at the amount of information that is being communicated. So what I did was, in order for me to just quickly grasp whether this is something we could use or not, I basically had the themes that it was flashing at me. And then I said, what's the visual, right? So in each one, I could see what the visual is without having to look at the video again, right? And then, so what this allowed me to do is allowed me to say, you know, so when my boss asked me, hey, Robert, can we leverage last year's video, maybe make some changes and edit, you think we could do that and then have a product quickly? So after doing this, I'm like, no way. There's just no way, right? We'd have to fundamentally change the structure and fundamentally create a whole new video, right? So this is just me looking at a 50-second video. I chose to mind map it out, and you know, I was able to not waste money and time and effort on creating a new video when it wasn't worth it. So that's another really cool example of that.
So Robert, can
Yeah.
I say something?
Yeah.
Hi. So working in education, I'm particularly sensitive to different people's learning style, and one of the things I like about the Mindmeister that you just showed us is the way the content can be put into different formats.
Yeah.
Because I think people take in and organize information so differently that I think that that's a really strong aspect.
Yeah,
quality.
I agree. And I think the beauty of all of this is when you get, like, I remember showing my daughter how to do this, Belle, and you know, so here's what I do. I'll give you a tactic that I use. She's 15 now. So I give her a yearly syllabus. Okay. She gets a syllabus and it's 100% optional. And I say, these are the skill sets you need to learn. She gets paid for learning them. If she doesn't do them, she doesn't have to do it. She doesn't get paid, right? It's real simple. So that's my way of nudging her, not pushing her. And I found that once she started connecting how to create something visually, and then she can do the things like I showed you, how to print it out, how to, you know, you can start to see how the value of it is, and then that's when the light bulbs go off, right? You can easily, again, I would have kicked so much ass in high school and college if I had this tool. I mean, this would have been like performance steroids for athletes for me, right? It's like, but you know, at least it's helped me in my professional career, right? But yeah, very, very powerful tool. I would love to see more kids using this type of tool because it's fundamentally going to prepare them for, this digital age that we're in.
Okay, now I'm curious about this 100 thing syllabus.
Yes, that's another webinar, by the way. I'm going to show you how so every year I create a syllabus for myself, right? And I say, what do I want to learn, right? Because I don't want to stay still. I don't want to be the guy at work that goes, in my day we did it this way, right? And like, be the old codger, right? I want to make sure I stay ahead. My skills are fresh. I'm looking at new ways of doing things. So I create a syllabus. And what I do is, like one of the things I'm real big in is IDEO University. So I do a lot of the design thinking courses. I've done how to do storytelling, innovation for insights. So there's a lot of stuff that's out there, and you know, each one of those courses are like $3.99. Fortunately, my company pays for that kind of stuff, but I'll do that. And then I'll also have books that I want to read. So one of the books I'm reading right now, because I'm really boning up on my artificial intelligence knowledge. So I have the math background for it. I need to understand the algorithms specifically, right? So for me, I can go right into understanding artificial intelligence. So I'm doing that so that I can have a very fundamental baseline of understanding. You can also do stuff on the great courses, right? There's a lot of different things that you can do, but I create a syllabus at the beginning of the year, and this is what I generally hit it, right? And then I did one for my daughter. I said, I'm going to pick 4 things that it can be 3, 5, whatever, right? And one of them, for example, was mind mapping a few years ago.
Hey, Robert,
yeah.
I have to sign off for another meeting, but
No worries.
when will the recording be available?
Probably in the next hour, and I'll get this out to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks for attending, Valerie.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. If there's no more questions. Shiva, thank you, brother. I appreciate your help so much.
Always, Robert, for you.
Gary, Marcus, Evan, everyone, thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.